Steve Jobs famously urged us to have the courage to follow our heart and intuition. It sounds like a simple invitation, but if our intuition rises from within us, why does the act of listening to it feel like a dangerous journey into the unknown? We usually interpret this hesitation as a personal flaw, a sign that we lack the bravery required to be ourselves. In reality, our minds run on an emotional operating system that was never built for solitude. As this diagram shows, our internal software was programmed to prioritize external expectations to ensure our survival. The resistance we feel is the predictable result of trying to run an authentic life on software built for collective adaptation. This programming began in childhood. We secured warmth and belonging by learning to read adults' eyes, shifting our own shapes to match their expectations. Over time, we became fluent in the language of other people's needs, while our own inner voice grew faint, like a whisper behind thick glass. This creates a false self, a necessary psychological construct built out of a sincere biological need to remain emotionally safe. Courage, then, is a quiet developmental achievement. It is the slow, hard-won work of dismantling years of survival conditioning to return to yourself. To begin this structural update, we have to look at how psychology maps the terrain of bravery. Carl Jung, seen here immersed in his own introspection, emphasized the inward courage required to meet ourselves in the dim light of the unconscious, to face the fears and hidden longings we learn to bury. Brené Brown focuses on the outward courage of vulnerability. She asks if you can tell your story with your whole heart and let the world see your true self, even when acceptance is uncertain.
These represent two different directions, one turned inward, one turned outward. But they lead to a practical crisis. Once you have found yourself and allowed yourself to be seen, how do you actually make the daily decisions that define your life? Self-awareness and vulnerability are only the foundation. Without a new framework for making choices, our actions remain dependent on the weather of other people's opinions. We often try to solve this by practicing detachment, isolating ourselves, or trying to stop caring what the world thinks entirely. But detachment is a dead end. It forces us to withdraw from the world rather than finding a way to thrive within it. To make actual decisions, we must transition from suppression to integration. Think of your psyche as an internal boardroom, where every data point, your fears, your social needs, and your desires, is currently shouting for control. Reorganizing this space is the process of identity completion. Identity completion updates the system by giving every part of your psyche a voice. It recognizes that every internal impulse deserves an equal vote in your life. Fear and societal expectations aren't fired from the board. They keep their votes because they serve a legitimate purpose, keeping you safe and connected. However, the rule of integration is that none of those external or fear-based votes may outrank your core values. Integrated courage begins when your values finally hold the deciding vote, ensuring your life is no longer organized by your wounds. By granting your own values an equal weight in this internal boardroom, you are practicing a radical form of self-respect. You are operating from the realization that you hold equal standing with anyone else in the room. In practice, this means believing that your authentic desires and your potential deserve the same respect as the world's expectations. As children, belonging demanded we abandon ourselves to fit in. As integrated adults, we realize that true belonging no longer requires self-abandonment. This is the psychological weight behind the common advice to love what you do and do what you love. It is a courageous act of rebellion. It asks you to trust your own heart before the world grants you permission. When your own values finally hold an equal place in the life you create, that is identity completion. That is becoming whole.